welcome to Intentional Oversharing with me, your host, Neely Kimmy. I have been trying to figure out what I wanted to talk about for this week, and my mind keeps going back to politics. But yeah, I have some other thoughts in mind of things I wanted to talk about. I've recently had a couple of people either ask me kind of about how I run my business or compliment me on the way that it seems like I'm running my business. And so I did want to talk just a little bit about being an AuDHD business owner. I think in order for things to remain sustainable with a business, I think that we have to approach things maybe a little bit differently than a neurotypical person might. So, yeah, we'll talk about that. So, I've had my business, Weird and Wired, for a year and a few months, maybe like a year and 2 or 3 months now. And first of all, I just want to say, by no means am I like rolling in money. I'm not to that point yet. I just want to be clear that I didn't start out with a lot of money, or really any when I started my business. And I'm not like making a shit ton or anything. I'm not making like a huge profit yet. I'm still very early on in being a business owner, but I do rely on my wife to help a lot with like our main kind of bills and those kinds of things. It takes a while to get a business off the ground. That's why it can be so hard if that's like your dream is to have your own business or to be self-employed. It can be pretty difficult to make that happen while you're burnt out in a full-time position. And I could tell that wasn't going to be really an option for me. I could tell that I needed to basically be all in on my business, focus completely on that, and not also try to juggle a job where I didn't feel well supported, or like even just a job where I had to dedicate full-time hours to it at the same time. I'm not saying that that's not possible if that's what you're trying to do. I'm just saying I knew that for me, that would have overwhelmed me, and it probably would have become too much pretty quickly. And I probably would have given up on my business early on if I didn't do it this way. So I got to a point where I was able to I quit my job, and I was trying to break into UX design. And if you go back and listen to my Neely lore episode, then you can hear a little bit more about that transition. I won't go back over that here, but basically, whenever I started my business, at the time I had a part-time job as a research assistant, and my hours were pretty inconsistent, and it didn't require a whole lot of my time. I didn't like that job very much. But yeah, that's where I was. I didn't have a full-time job when I started my business. So I was able to dedicate like any time outside of my part-time job to this business. The primary source of income for me has been through one-on-one coaching, and a little bit of group coaching that I've done. I currently don't have any I wouldn't say that I have like passive income streams at the moment. That's something I'm planning on focusing more on this year. I'm like a brand ambassador for Stim Mags, if you've heard of those. It's my favorite fidget toy. This isn't me trying to squeeze or sneak an ad in here. I'm just mentioning that that's another income source. I wouldn't call it passive because I do have to create content. I have to make like video ads, and I have to create like social media posts to share my affiliate link and my promo code and all of that stuff. But once I've done that for each kind of launch that we do, I don't have to do a whole lot after that. I just like post the ad on a couple of different platforms. Every once in a while I might mention it or share my link with like in a social media post, and that's kind of it. And last year, as I was getting kind of the one-on-one coaching, getting a groove with that, I would say, and building a client base, I also, for most of the year, I worked for Timo. They were hosting body doubling sessions and they needed facilitators. I was able to get in with them to do that as like a contractor. So I was getting some income that way. That was nice for a while. Like even with the nonprofit organization that I was with briefly last year, I was pretty much there on a volunteer basis. So any work that I did with them was largely unpaid. I didn't get very much from that monetarily at all. So I've kept my options open when it comes to different sources of income coming to me. And now the hope and the plan is for me to continue with Stomara as a brand ambassador, and also now with the jumpsuit agency, I'm going to be working with Nicole to put together self-paced courses and maybe do like workshops. I don't know. We'll see how all of that kind of pans out, but I'm really excited about it. And I feel like I'm going to be able to maintain a lot of autonomy as I do that, which is extremely important to me. That's been a really key piece of the puzzle when it comes to making my business sustainable, focusing on autonomy. And that's really what I wanted to spend some time talking about today. So, I've known several people who have also gone through the ADHD Works coach training programs. I came into that program with no self-employment experience. I came into it very largely brand new when it comes to business ownership. I didn't know much about business or marketing or anything like that. And I've just been kind of figuring things out as I go along, which is really kind of the way that my brain works anyway. Like I need to be doing stuff myself, like learning as I go, essentially. I need to like try things, see if that works. If that doesn't work, I might eliminate something. What has become kind of my motto, or what I really strive for with my business, is only saying yes to things, or continuing to say yes to something, if I actually want to do it and enjoy doing it. So for the longest time, I would say as I was growing up and then like in young adulthood in my 20s, I got really used to saying yes to opportunities. I really kind of pushed myself to say yes. And I've talked a little bit about this on the podcast previously. I think that me saying yes and intentionally kind of pushing myself to say yes to things, it's helped me to learn a lot about my own limits. It's helped me to learn a lot about setting boundaries, and figuring out what I might want to say no to, which I think is key. Just because an opportunity comes to you and it sounds really good, or just because it seems like it would be stupid of you or silly of you not to say yes, that doesn't mean that that's the opportunity for you, right? So just because um maybe if other people say like, oh, I would do anything to be given the chance to do that or something. That's still like, regardless of what other people think, some situations and some opportunities just aren't for you. They weren't meant for you. Um, and that doesn't mean that you should automatically say no to them, but it does mean that your yes can always evolve into a no. The more that you try something and it doesn't work, the more that you learn about yourself and what you enjoy doing. With, like, for instance, that nonprofit that I worked for last year, here, let's talk a little bit about human design. So by no means am I an expert on human design. I'm still learning. Everything I've learned for free on the internet or from other people who know things about human design. I use the framework a lot with my coaching clients, and I am a 5/1 manifester in human design. That might not mean anything to you, and that's totally fine. Feel free to look it up. Don't pay anybody unless you want to pay like someone who's trained in human design to help you to understand your chart. I just would say, like, Google and YouTube are your friend with this. Use those to learn about your chart. That being said, something that I talk about a lot with my clients, and that has been a really key framework for me when it comes to my business, has been the aspect of the not self theme in human design. So the not self theme is described as like a telltale feeling that you're not living in alignment with your design. What I think is important about this not self theme is to recognize that it's not something that we're trying to, it's not a feeling that we're trying to avoid. It's not a feeling that we're trying to eliminate. And it also isn't a feeling that we're going to immediately know kind of what it's trying to tell us. It's basically meant to be a signal to us that when this feeling comes up and there isn't some obvious root cause to the feeling, then maybe there's some area of your life where you're living out of alignment with yourself. So for manifestors in human design, our not self theme is anger. Anger has been a recurring feeling, emotion that I've experienced throughout my life. I wouldn't consider myself to be like an angry person. Um, but it is a recurring kind of feeling I've experienced throughout my life. And after learning about human design, that all kind of started to make a little bit more sense. And it helped me to kind of like deconstruct or like distance myself a little bit from this kind of recurring theme of anger and not internalize that so much as like, maybe I am an angry person and I just didn't realize it. I don't think that that's actually the case. I think that anger has revealed itself to me in different ways as a tool, as a signal that something isn't right. So I say all of that to mention that when I was working with that nonprofit organization last year, I noticed that like anytime they would ask me to do things that I had agreed to do and that I was capable of doing, I started to get angry about it. I started to feel a lot of anger whenever I would just be asked to do like normal things. The feeling didn't feel good to me. It was hard for me to kind of regulate it or make sense of it. And I ended up talking to my friend Julia, which, if you've seen my episode F is for Friends, that's my friend Julia that I'm talking about. She knows quite a bit about human design. And so we talked about it, and she was like, are you mad at these people for asking you to do things? And I was like, I'm not mad at them. Like, they're not doing anything wrong by asking me to do what I've agreed to do, but I'm just mad anytime they ask. And so through talking with her a bit, I realized, oh, this anger isn't necessarily directed at the people that are asking me to do these things. This is showing me that something about this area of my life is not in alignment with my human design or with my true self or whatever you want to call it. So I ended up coming to that conclusion. That felt really good to me. I ended up stepping down from my role with them, and all of that turned out to be for the best for a number of reasons. But as soon as I stepped down from my role with them, it was like that anger completely dissolved. It was like a turning point for me when it comes to regaining my autonomy with my business and also kind of understanding human design a little bit better for myself and what it means for me and all of that stuff. That situation could have connected me to a bunch of different things and it could have opened some doors and all of that, but it felt like it was pulling me away from my own mission, from my own business, and that didn't feel good. I didn't want to be pulled away from my own business. I wanted to be putting as much time and effort into my business and into doing things the way I wanted to, not the way anybody else wanted me to, or not to support their mission. I wanted to support my own mission. It's like, it might sound silly, honestly, but I like a lot of this is kind of based on vibes, right? Like if I have somebody approach me on LinkedIn, for example, and they, first of all, if they just like uh pitch slap me, as in like they ask to connect with me and they immediately try to pitch, like send me a sales pitch or something, that's not how I operate. Like I'm not looking for people to like employ. I'm not looking for people to pay to be involved in my business. If something like that is going to happen, I want it to happen organically. I want it to happen with people that I already have a relationship with and trust. So that's not going to work if you just immediately hit me with like a sales pitch. Um, but also, you know, there might be certain people that reach out to me that are interested in collaborating on something and it just doesn't feel right. And so I go with that. My decision-making strategy in human design is splenic. Jumping in here really quick to correct myself. I meant to say my decision-making authority, not strategy. I always get those mixed up. Anyway, moving on. Which essentially means that like I like feel the yes or the no like in my body when somebody approaches me or when an opportunity comes to me. And it's like there's a lot of opportunity for rejection sensitive dysphoria to happen as a business owner, but then also whenever you're talking to other, you know, people within your industry, there's a lot of opportunity for rejection sensitivity to come up, right? But I can't compromise um I can't compromise myself or my business for the sake of sparing someone else's feelings, right? So if the vibe doesn't fit for whatever reason, that's a no. Like if I feel within my body that the answer is no, I'm getting better at reading that in myself. I'm getting better at listening to that and recognizing what that means. It can take a lot of time to start to trust yourself when it comes to making decisions and like following your gut or following whatever your decision making strategy in human design is. And if somebody comes to me and they say they want to collaborate and to me it feels like a no, I'm going to go with that. And that could possibly change later on. Um but I don't want to like give people false hope. Um if it doesn't feel right or if it doesn't fit the vibe or whatever you want to call it. So sometimes that means that someone hits me up and they want to collaborate somehow. And immediately I'm like, yes. And I don't really understand why it's a yes for those people versus a no for others. I'm trying to be better about listening to myself, following what my spleen essentially is telling me. It's either a hell yes or a hell no. for me. And so this isn't just about collaborations either, because, bringing anybody into your business kind of world, you have to be careful about that, I think, in general, because people can try to scam you, or people can try to like use you for whatever reason. So I just think it's important to be careful about that in general. But it's not just about that either. So, like, I personally feel really icky when it comes to sales stuff in general. I've had countless people, I can't even tell you how many people in just this small amount of time that I've had a business, that I've had people come to me and tell me, oh, like, how do you get client leads? If you aren't doing XYZ, then you're doing it wrong. Or being like, you have to have an email newsletter in order to market yourself. There's like no other option. You have to have an email newsletter. Well, I tried to have an email newsletter. I was like collecting emails and everything for months. And I started to get really angry anytime I tried to sit down and actually create a newsletter, whether it was designing it or coming up with how I wanted to implement it or just writing anything for the newsletter. I would get angry that not self theme would come up. And I was just so like over it immediately before I even really started. And I talked to my friend Julia about this, and it was like, okay, well, if there's this much of a barrier when it comes to starting an email newsletter, maybe this is happening because I hate emails. I'm the unsubscribe queen. Like, I might subscribe to your email newsletter and immediately unsubscribe. There's no hard feelings. I don't mean it personally. I promise that. I can't emphasize that enough. I've done that to so many of my friends because I want to support them. And then I'm like, I don't read these. And it's not anything to do with what they're sending me or how it looks or whatever. It's usually like, I just don't want to read emails all day. I don't want to. So I love unsubscribing. And I know that if I were to be like putting all this time and effort into creating these email newsletters and people were unsubscribing, it would hurt my feelings. How about I just skip it and do something else to market myself, right? Why not? I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. I don't have to do things the way everybody else does them. And I specifically don't do things the way everybody else does them. And I try to figure out other options for myself. So essentially what I've done instead of an email newsletter is I have created a Discord community. I'm not sharing it like publicly. I'm being very selective about who I invite into that community and into that world. Main reason being, first of all, you have to fit the vibe. I can't tell you how you do that. You just do or you don't, and I invite you to it. If you're into it, cool. If you're not, that's fine. But I'm so protective of that community because like trolls are so common online, and like spam bots and all of these things. And so it would just really devastate me if I opened this up to the public without any sort of way of vetting people into this space first. It would be so devastating to me if people came in and they just like took over or started being really awful to the people that are in the community. Like, we have a really good thing going right now in this community, and I just would hate for anybody to come in and just start being awful, because I know that people are capable of doing that. And I don't, yeah, I'm not okay with that. We have like rules and guidelines and stuff, and it's essentially, the point is to be like a safe space for neurodivergent adults. I'm doing everything I can to kind of protect the sanctity of that, essentially. But that is where I share about upcoming events for Weird and Wired. I share certain social media posts. I share my affiliate links for different things. I promote myself on there, and I've gotten clients that way, but that's not like my aim. My goal in having this community isn't to make money off of these people. That's like a side effect. If I'm able to make money somehow, cool, but it's really to like build community, and it's really to try to foster a safe space. Yeah. So eventually what I'm hoping to do with that is to create like some sort of an application to try to vet people into that community so it can continue to grow. But I do need to figure out a way to ensure that it doesn't get taken over by trolls or idiots or jerks or whatever, because I'm not okay with exposing my community to that. That's been my kind of answer to this whole email newsletter thing that everybody says you have to have. I completely disagree. If you don't want to have an email newsletter, get creative, figure out something else that feels sustainable for you. I figured out before I even released an email newsletter that would not be sustainable for me. I hated it before it even started. So like listen to that. Like you have to, like, naturally, as someone with ADHD, you're probably highly creative in general, and you probably naturally think outside of the box. Use that to your advantage if you decide to start a business. I don't spread myself really thin when it comes to social media. The social media that I'm on, if you want to count Discord, sure. But the social media that I'm on where I actually do any sort of promoting of myself, LinkedIn and TikTok and YouTube, I guess. So those three are my main ones. That feels reasonable and sustainable to me. Any meta platforms, like, I don't respect the people that run those, and the way that they run things. I'm not into it, so I avoid those for my own mental health. But I also don't want to like help them to make more money or to be able to exploit anybody on there. So I don't support those platforms. We'll see what happens with TikTok ultimately, but for now, I like the people on there. I like sharing my stuff on there. I like the way that the algorithm works, even though we're being censored, which is a whole thing. So we'll just see if I can maintain that. But LinkedIn is what it is. I like being on there. I like my network on there. I've really curated my feed on there. So I enjoy spending time on that platform. So I'm not like trying to be active on every single platform that ever existed. I'm not trying to spread myself thin when it comes to social media. If it doesn't feel good to me, the answer is no. And if I make enemies as I'm doing that, I have to be okay with that because it's not about anybody else. It's about me, what's sustainable for me and my business, what feels good to me. If I ever have any brands approach me to be an affiliate or to be an ambassador for them, and it's not something that I fully stand behind and can genuinely vouch for because I use it myself. If I have to like force myself to try to pretend like I use something or like I like something and I actually don't, that's not going to be sustainable for me. So I'm not going to do that. That's why I only right now am an ambassador for Stamara and Found, which is like a business bank account, which I really love. I'll put my affiliate link in the description for that as well. Super easy to set up. But yeah, I'm just trying really hard to stay true to myself and stay true to what catches my attention, what feels like something that I could not only do like once or twice, but I could continue to do over time, because otherwise I'm wasting myself and everybody else's time, right? So basically, What I'm getting at is, unless you maybe have like a master's in business, you're not going to automatically know what you're doing when it comes to starting your own business. Be kind to yourself as you're figuring that out. Give yourself grace as you figure out how you want to run your business. I do. Here's another example. I offer a lot of free stuff as part of my business. You might be told by whatever gurus or whatever that you shouldn't be offering your time for free and blah blah blah. Largely, I agree with that. Generally speaking, I agree. However, the stuff that I do and that I offer for free, like the events, the book club, the body doubling, all of that stuff, I do it because it's serving me in some way. It fosters community. It's getting my name out there. I find it fulfilling. It's stuff that I find fulfilling. If there are any events or anything that I offer, I give it a try and I don't like doing it, guess what? I'm not going to keep doing it. Even if everybody else loved it and they want it to stay around forever, cool. Maybe I'll find somebody else who wants to host that event if it's not me, you know? Um, I'm not going to sign up for something or continue with something if it doesn't feel good for me. And I think that that's kind of what it boils down to. I'll say that I know that this is coming from a place of privilege for me, so I will acknowledge that. But I'm setting things up in a way that feels realistic and sustainable over time. So like I don't really like marketing myself very much or going out of my way to like try to sell myself or my services to other people. So I just don't. I let people find me. I just let them find me. I let them see my stuff on social media if they like my vibe and they want to look into the services I offer. Great. And that's working out for me. And yeah, so I'm not like paying for ads on Google. I'm not like paying for Facebook ads or ads elsewhere. Like, that's not, I don't want to. That feels icky and gross to me. I'm not saying that anybody that does that is icky and gross. Not trying to say that at all. I'm saying if it works for you and it feels good, do it. If it doesn't, figure out a different way to do it, is what I'm getting at. So that's going to be my episode for today. We managed to not spiral about politics. So that's a win in my eyes. I'm sure I'll talk about that again here very soon. I hope that you're all feeling as safe as you can at the moment. My heart is with everyone who is currently being affected by the American regime at the moment. Um, my heart is with anyone who is really stressed out and really affected by this. If you listen to my last episode titled Unedited Stream of Consciousness, I talk a little bit about finding a balance when it comes to staying informed and still being able to take care of yourself and avoid doom scrolling and those kinds of things. I talk a little bit about that in the last episode. So maybe give that a listen. Let me know if you tried any of those things, if they worked for you, if they didn't. If you're also an AuDHD business owner or entrepreneur or whatever you want to call it, self-employed, I'd love to hear from you. Please connect with me on LinkedIn. I think it's important to surround yourself with other people who get it, whatever that means for you. It can be very isolating being a business owner in general, and just know that you're not alone. There, there are dozens of us out here, and we're making it work. And so I think if this is something that you hope to do as well, you can also make it work. I believe that you can. Thank you for listening. As always, I appreciate anybody who's listening to these. Yeah, wishing you all the best, wishing you safety, healing, peace, all of that good stuff. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening. Love y'all. Bye.